This time we have the black pieces against some knight f3. So pawn to d4. Okay, so I guess we're going back into our knight f6 line. Pawn to c4. Okay, we'll go pawn to e6 here. Could go for a couple different lines. Okay, so here we have a couple different options. We can go bishop to b4. We can go pawn to c5. We can even take the pawn. So this is a very interesting option. So if they go pawn to e4 here, there's a very interesting line where you can play pawn to b5. But if they just play the move pawn to a3, we get into some sort of version of the Queen's Gambit accepted. Now I think the best move for white is to go a4, because I think if bishop takes here, this is meant to be relatively comfortable for black. I can get in this move pawn to b5, and then the key thing in these positions you have to remember is just that this bishop needs to go to the b7 square very early, otherwise it will find itself trapped in this type of structure. Now after the move a3, my opponent is potentially threatening b4 to cover c5, so we need to play the move pawn to c5 in these positions. But once we get in bishop b7 and pawn to c5, black should be very comfortable here. So we play the move knight to d7 here. This is just in case if he ever captures, we can always capture back with the knight if we really need to. So queen to e2. So we can take here and then play bishop to c5. This would be a very decent approach, but he's probably going to take back with the pawn. So I'll just play bishop to e7 here, develop the bishop. Yeah, rook to d1. Is he maybe wanting to take here on c5 and get some sort of attack here? But the fact that he played rook to d1 makes me sort of want to take here more, because I think knight takes is not particularly dangerous for black. So I think I will take, actually, because now with the rook on d1, yeah, this isolated queen's pawn type of positions is not, I would say, not as dangerous, because the rook typically belongs, this rook anyway, typically belongs on e1. Well, it seems more dangerous anyway on e1, where it's targeting the f7 square. Whereas here I'll just continue with the move knight to b6, put the knight on d5, maybe play rook c8. We have a fairly comfortable position. So if knight to e5, maybe we play knight to d5, or h6 is also a possibility. But I'm very, I want to be very careful of playing the move pawn to h6, because it does create some holes. But okay, this move must definitely be a mistake, because giving up the bishop pair so early, unprovoked as well. So there, I just want to blockade the d5 square, so this way he's stuck with this weak d pawn. So we'll play the move knight to d5 here. And yeah, I mean, white is exchanging too many pieces here. I think it's making black's life much easier. It's changing everything. Actually, if you're playing white in these isolated queen's pawn positions, you want to go for sort of an attacking game, and you don't want to exchange pieces, because exchanging off too many pieces will simply help black, because then you'll end up with a endgame with a weak d4 pawn. So we want to avoid these exchanges if you're playing with the isolated queen's pawn. Now if pawn to b4 threatening rook c5 to try and get rid of the pawn, I think I will just play the move rook to c4. Okay, I'll play the move pawn to g6. So it's always a question here whether you play h6 or g6, but in this particular position, I want to give my bishop a retreat square and also give my king a flight square on g7. I think it's a little bit safer because then my bishop can sort of cover the dark squares. And yeah, I think the longer this game goes, the more unpleasant the position will become for for white. So yeah, we shouldn't be worried as black here to go into the end game. That blunders a pawn. I just take and then capture the d pawn. So I was about to say it can be quite tough to try and win the d pawn because it might take quite a while to sort of organize enough pressure, but here I think white just gave us the pawn for free. And also these pawns are on dark squares, so it's, I think, even worse here. So just play rook d8 and queen takes b2. Knight c5, I don't think changes anything. I think I still can play this move. Yeah, queen takes b2. We're attacking the rook with tempo as well, so it must be fine for black. I can take here, maybe drop the bishop back. And this knight on a6 will be completely dominated in that position. Yeah, so a mistake here, I think, for white is, you're playing isolated queen's pawn positions. You want to go for an attack, and you don't want to trade off too many pieces. So definitely don't want to be giving up your dark squared bishop unprovoked, and yeah, definitely exchanging on d5 so many times. I mean, the idea was to try and get the rook to c5 and force through d5 in exchange of this isolated pawn, but I think it just wasn't enough time for white to do that. And if white played b4 to try and play rook c5, then I think we have the move rook to c4 here, which was always going to be a little bit unpleasant, I think. Let's check. So rook takes c4, takes, yeah, past c pawn. We go rook c8 and we just push through. This pawn is always weak as well. So I hope you enjoyed this game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next Rapid game.